the contention then of the Philippines, and I base this not on my reading of the actual memorial. To be honest, I have not come across an actual copy because it is not available to the public. However, we can extrapolate the Philippine position based on the note filed by China in December of last year. And basically, their contention was that first, they have indisputable sovereignty over the region in dispute based on their 2009 UN note verbal. Two, they actually consider our actions, the Philippine actions, as a challenge to that sovereignty. But more troublingly, since we are trying to ask the UN to declare what these rocks, these patches of sand, and what these formations are in the West Philippine Sea, and what their entitlements are, as well as an indicative ruling of what the UN position is on the 9-dash line claim, I wonder how the UN will rule. Why? Remember, when it was filed, we were still talking about rocks and patches of sand. The narrative has changed. You are now talking about virtually islands. Initially 5 of them, now soon to be 7 of them. And they will be finished sometime this year or probably early next year. Which brings me to ask, is one a direct reaction to the other? Because I believe everything that happens in foreign relations actually is a reaction of one to the actions of another. I'm led to wonder, when the Philippines, with DFA at the forefront, filed their arbitration case, did it think that far ahead as to what effects, first order, second order, and third order effects, we were able to think of in terms of China's action or reaction in relation to this arbitration case? Because to my mind, that contemplation of these first, second, and third order effects should properly guide us as to our strategy in dealing with the West Philippine Sea. But like I said, with our foreign policy being anchored on the tripartite action plan, I am amazed that after going over such plan, I still consider it a no-action plan. It does not contemplate a post-UN arbitration ruling and our actions from then on. By the way, just to add, Chito makes a good point about this. We are not guaranteed a favorable ruling from the arbitration tribunal. We are not even assured that they will make a ruling at all. Why? As mentioned by Chito, if, as China pointed out, the issue is not about maritime entitlements, because in the first place, the question emanates from jurisdiction, then it does not fall under arbitration. Therefore, what will the UN Arbitration Court do? They will remand it either to the parties, meaning they will give it back to the Philippines and for China to settle, or they will remand it to the International Court of Justice, which, by the way, has ruled on other maritime disputes. Of late, they ruled recently on the dispute between Peru and Chile. So if that happens, if the second thing happens, where are we now? We're back to zero. Okay, let's go to a more positive scenario. We obtain a favorable ruling. Under the rules of procedure of the arbitration, it states there, the only compelling provision under that rules of procedure is that it says that the parties must abide by the ruling of the arbitration court. I cannot find any more forceful or stronger provision under the rules of procedure. The problem here is that we only have one party that submitted itself, only the Philippines. China did not submit itself to arbitration. Still no luck?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe in Japan.
Let us not be lulled into inaction by the pending verdict of the UN International Tribunal. Some analysts fear that a major discovery of oil or natural gas may again spark another round of clashes in the region. And this comes at a very bad time because precisely we still lack the mechanisms either to facilitate conflict resolution or direct intervention in an outright confrontation. Maybe you can skip to the last part. I'll go back to that later. I'll just reverse the order of my presentation. I'll proceed to my concluding statements. Then I'll go back to these pictures.
What occasion?
Can you go? Sorry. Can you go to where the picture of the Marines? Go down. There. Okay. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Well, I was trying to make this point a while ago. This is the proximity of Mischief Reef with our Ayungin Shoal. It's less than 40 kilometers. And what would make any strategy to sustain Ayungin very difficult is that it has to come from Palawan, which is roughly about 100 kilometers away. Next slide. Now, why am I saying that the prospects of conflict are great? And it actually comes at a very bad time. Let me just mention to you that China has been involved with the most number of maritime incidents in the region. It accounts for 61 of these. Okay? 19 of them involve Japan. Can you click please? 6 of them involve the United States. The most number actually involved the Philippines at 24. And then another 17 incidents with Vietnam. However, the most bloody involved Vietnam in 1988 rather, where 70 Vietnamese sailors were mowed down by the PLA Navy. Now, what's sad about this, and I'm not even talking about the PLA Navy and the PLA Air Force. Let's just talk about the Chinese Navy and the Chinese civilian maritime agencies. Sorry, can you go back to that slide? Now, those boxes in blue represent 5 ships. And the leftmost chart presents China's strength in terms of its Coast Guard and its maritime civilian agencies. We're somewhere in the middle. That's the disparity in the civilian arm of that strategy in the West Philippine Sea. What's worse, next slide please, is that, there, sorry, can you go back? We rank 10, number 10 out of 14 countries in the Asia Pacific in terms of defense spending. And we have consistently underspent for our defense. let me go back to the tripartite action plan. The reason why I have some misgivings about the TAP is that it relies heavily on one, arbitration, two, diplomatic protest, and third, an ideal, albeit vain effort to obtain a enforceable code of conduct. Remember, we have a 2002 declaration on the code of conduct of parties in the South China Sea, which was signed by 10 ASEAN countries as well as China. However, my problem with that is it is unenforceable. And as far as I can recall, it's only the Philippines that has been observing that code of conduct. Like I said, it is tantamount to a no-action plan. Why? It binds other agencies from conducting parallel actions. That's why I was interested with the lady's question a while ago as to whether or not we can rehabilitate our runway in Pag-asa. It hasn't been renovated since 1991. And I actually have direct information that several attempts of the DND and the AFP to send equipment and materials for the repair of the runway have been stymied. I consider the TAP as an unconscionable strategy. We cannot put all our eggs in the arbitration case and expect the international community to work in our behalf. Why? If the international community is so powerful as our foreign policy experts think it is, then why is it that the international community is continually powerless against the Russians in their inroads into Ukraine? And why have we not stemmed the ISIS inroads into the Middle East? We as a country should not be so naive to think that international attention is the panacea to our situation in the West Philippine Sea. We have to mobilize national will towards concrete and decisive action on the ground and in the seas. If you recall, I called for the convening of the National Security Council and even to some extent relevant cabinet mechanisms like the Cabinet Security Cluster. Since the DFA is present here today, may I ask again, just as an illustrative point, can we actually improve our existing structures in order to maintain our logistical supply lines for our garrisons in the West Philippine Sea? Don't we have the right to exercise our prerogative to protect our fishermen in our exclusive economic zone, who are, by the way, being evicted and not allowed by the Chinese to fish in our own waters? If the answer is no, then I fear that our own government officials have unwittingly advanced the cause of our own country, have advanced the cause of another country to the detriment of our own. Now, let me go back to the matter of the reclamation activities. Manny, does time still allow us?
Yes.
Would you like us to go over the...
Yes.
Okay. I've already concluded my remarks, but I'd just like us to see how extensive really are the reclamation activities. Just fourth slide, please. There. Gavin Reef. In February of 2013, what was merely a 1,000 square meter solitary structure had grown 4 times to around 4,128 square meters. The latest photos of Gavin Reef I was able to obtain show, as of the end of January this year, that it had become host to a 6-story facility. Kindly, please. There. With more concrete structures in the works. Now let's go to Fiery Cross. Next slide, please. There. What was just, again, a solitary structure for many years had become drastically transformed. Can we go to the next slide? You can see there. Can we click, please? There. If you can notice, it is being reconfigured into an airstrip. And notice too that it has a 6-story building undergoing construction. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Chigua Reef. This is a close-up of the original structure prior to reclamation. In the next slide, there, notice how the surrounding area has bustled with construction activity. According to this latest photo of the reef last January, it is being reconfigured, to my mind, into to host a runway, a 6-story building, and from merely 1,032 square meters, it is now roughly 6.81 hectares. Next slide. There, close up. That's a 6-story building. I was talking to you about the Chinese Navy. That day, when those close-up pictures were taken of the reclamation activity, we also confirmed the ominous presence of a Chinese PLA Navy U-2 type amphibious warfare ship. Can you please show a close-up? Next slide, please. It is an amphibious warfare ship identifiable as Dan Shashan because of its bomb number 934. There, you can see it. Now let us look at Johnson Reef. Next slide, please. There, let me go back. Okay. So that was how it looked like a year ago. That was sometime July 2014. Now this is how it looks like this January 2015. Again, take notice of the multi-story structure on the left side. And from a mere 1,000 square meters, it has grown to about 7.94 hectares. This is a close-up of the multi-story structure. Next. Okay, can you go back one slide, please? There, you can see the octagonal structure on the right upper right-hand side. If you go over the different reclamation activities and the ongoing concrete structure being built, you will see that there is a similarity in the structures. It's as if they're following certain specifications. And even the construction of octagonal structures there, it's also a consistent pattern across the reefs. Next slide, please. Let's go to Quarteron. There, on the upper left hand, that was how it looked like in 2009. And it is only 1,000 square meters. Right now, as of January, that building alone, in the middle, occupies already 4,000 square meters. Larger than the original structure, which you see on the upper left hand. Okay? The entire reclamation area covers an area of, can you go back to the previous slide, 11.97 hectares. Next. There, this is close up. You see again the octagonal structure and the multi-story building. By engineering estimates, it's at least 6 stories high. There you can see the consistent pattern of construction. Next slide, please. Next we go to Subi Reef. This was the solitary structure before reclamation. Now from a distance, that is the extent of the reclamation activity. You will see the solitary structure on the left-hand side there. But from afar, that is how extensive already the reclamation area is. The reclamation activity is beginning this January. Again, the method and technology being used is dredging. So they take away sand from the bottom of the sea, and then they push it upward to cover what used to be just patches of sand and just shallow waters. So if you see a consistent pattern here, you see the massive scale, which I don't think a mere private sector entity can undertake. You see here that the full resources of a large nation is brought to bear. Next slide. Okay. Here we have also discovered the presence of another Chinese ship. At this time, the Lu Huashan, again identifiable by its bow number 997. It is known to be capable, sorry, can you go back to that? Okay. That ship can load 10 battle tanks and carry 250 fully equipped troops, probably Marines, and they can actually carry on its platforms helicopters. Of course, like I said, next slide please. The most troubling of all is the reclamation activity in Mischief Reef, which was seized from us and illegally occupied by China in 1995, a few years after the US left Clark Air Base and Subic Naval Base. The next slides will show us the extent of the, where that's taken from a distance. Okay. And this is a close-up of the dredging. Again, can we go back? Again, shadowing from just beyond the horizon is another Chinese Navy ship. The Jinhua. The Jinhua is a Jianghu class type of vessel, and it is a surface warfare frigate. So, to me, not just the scale of the reclamation activities, but the kind of effort to protect these activities calls to mind once again the full resources of a large country. If China's garrison in the Mischief Reef